Headphones on?
Welcome, everyone. My name is Craig Spencer. I'm the audiology team lead for the Widex brand in Canada, and we welcome you to another Widex podcast. I'm joined today by my colleague, Myriam Assouline, who's going to talk to us about practice management for tinnitus today. So welcome, Myriam.
Thank you so much for having me.
Just to introduce Myriam, Myriam is a healthcare practice management expert. And I do need to read this because there's a lot of important stuff to convey about Myriam. She's been the director of a laser eye surgery center, been a director of a seniors residence. She knows the challenges of running a successful practice, whose mission is to provide quality patient care, products and services. She has experience in sales and marketing, inpatient pay procedures, pharmaceuticals, medical devices. And she's really solidified this notion that to succeed, you have to differentiate your business. And that an emphasis on practice management is really important. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Thank you. Yes.
Myriam, you've earned your Bachelor's of Science degree in nursing from McGill University. You have a Master's of Science in Health Administration from the University of Montreal. And you have a doctorate in health administration from the University of Phoenix. So, welcome again.
Thank you so much for having me. First of all, I just want to say that I picked the topic of tinnitus management because one reason I'm in this field is to help people, and how blessed we are that we can be in fields that we can provide solutions. I found that in eye care as well as in the hearing industry. And so I know that already practices are offering tinnitus management. And this course then is built for people that are already offering this service or that are thinking of offering tinnitus management.
And maybe you can talk a little bit about that. Like, why would a clinic want to provide tinnitus management services?
Very good point. I don't know if people realize, but worldwide studies, also corroborated by our own Canadian healthcare surveys, show that 1 in 5 adults have tinnitus. So that's pretty significant. So the prevalence is quite high. Our own study that we conducted at Widex last October, actually, in 2022, we surveyed about 50 GPs and 52 nurse practitioners, and they said that they see in their waiting they see at least one tinnitus patient on a weekly basis. So it is pretty prevalent.
Mm-hmm. So really what you're saying is that tinnitus patients are already in your waiting rooms.
Exactly.
As a clinic owner.
Mm-hmm. So they're already in the waiting room, besides the reason that it's the prevalence, that it's already there. So, we need to treat these people. But also, when you embark in tinnitus management, you're adding to your healthcare hearing care expertise, which then leads to differentiating your practice, which is really important. On top of that, cherry on top of the ice cream, like we say, is you're going to be augmenting your revenue because you need to do a comprehensive tinnitus assessment, in addition, which you're charging for, and 80 to 90% of people that are experienced tinnitus have also hearing loss, which then will lead to the sale of hearing aids. So these are just a few reasons why why it would be
certainly
in your benefit.
Good reasons to
Yes.
to provide that type of service. So maybe we can get into a little bit about the practice management considerations that would come along with providing this type of service.
So in the course, I cover, first of all, how do tinnitus sufferers, which I like to use the word sufferers because it really, denotes the patient that we're dealing with. How do they obtain information? By looking at how they obtain information, then I address how should we promote our practice, our tinnitus management service in our practice. I also like to touch on how should we interact with the tinnitus management, the tinnitus patient. Then offer some counseling tips, maybe some scheduling, and also remuneration tips in that area. First, I can start with how do tinnitus patients obtain information?
Right, that's important. Yeah.
Okay, so we know that they obtain information in various ways. Usually, so it's newspaper media, online, and through critical care pathways, and I'm going to be elaborating on each of those. So firstly, online, for newspaper media, the research shows that people tend to produce articles because the interest is in knowing more about the condition and also new developments in treatments.
Okay. You mentioned online. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
100%. So online, we're talking about studies that have been done for Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Reddit. And basically, again, with Facebook, by the way, is the one that's more predominantly used when people are searching for information. And again, they're trying to find information about tinnitus itself and also new treatments. And a study, again, another study that compared the Twitter, Facebook pages and groups with YouTube found again that it was the one that was most predominantly searched. And another interesting thing that was found is that all of these platforms have a lot of misinformation. The quality of information isn't great. So this is something also that we have to take into account, that these patients are exposed to. And then again, the Twitter user studies that looked at just Twitter show that they act as an advocate. They want to share their experiences. Twitter is not used for social support, more to say, but again to share what they're going through. And then we also see research just on YouTube videos. So there are two types of videos. Usually what we find in the literature is some that are uploaded by the professionals, which tend to give information, and some that are uploaded by consumers to share their own experiences. And those are the ones that are predominantly looked at, are the consumer ones.
At the beginning of that last section, you mentioned Reddit. I'm kind of surprised to hear that one a little bit.
Reddit is, it's kind of considered a social media platform, although it's not like the other ones. Reddit, it works differently in that it's people post, they look at topics and they post on the topics. It's also anonymous, so there's no way to know gender, name, anything, so people really could be free to use and express themselves. And also it's very easy to use. So actually one study looked at 101,900 posts in Reddit, and they found that these clusters, they look at the clusters of the topics and they group them into two clusters, and mostly people are looking for tinnitus and the consequences, because I guess that they want to know what's happening now, I'm experiencing this, and also what to do, how to cope, the management of tinnitus. So again, online with these four platforms, a lot of activity is happening. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that the same researchers, they wanted to know what is the first source of information that people go to.
Right.
And they surveyed about 200 tinnitus sufferers, and what they found is that 58% either use online or their friends and family for support. Okay, the other 42% went, the first source was the healthcare system, healthcare professionals, either a GP, ENT, or audiologist, actually. You would think normally, like when you have a condition, you might go first to seek care.
That's actually less than 50%.
But it's less than 50%. And actually, more and more nowadays, people are practicing self-care where, it happens to you and I, that if we have something wrong with us, we're going to go Google it first, right? And the last thing we want to do is go see somebody. We already know in the hearing industry that this is not something that people really want to do. So speaking of those healthcare professionals, the other way that I mentioned previously that the tinnitus sufferers get information is going through to see a healthcare professional. So I call those the critical care pathways. And a patient could directly end up in your hearing clinic or indirectly. And indirectly, it could take them a long time. It could take them also a stressful journey. They might go to a GP that then might send them to ENT and then to you. They might go to an ENT that then will send them to you. There's so many permutations. It could be also a nurse practitioner. It could be the workman compensation boards that then send them to an ENT that then send them to you, or they go directly to you. The nursing homes, again, it's another pathway. So there are many different pathways. It also it's not easy. It's not direct, and those also entail wait times, right? Obviously, we know the healthcare system. So but these are 42% contribute to giving some information as well. I shared with you, Craig, how people obtain information. So then in the course, I use that, and it's more extensive in the course, more comprehensive. Obviously, this is a teaser and a synopsis, but basically. Once now that we know how they, where to find our tinnitus sufferers and the channels that they use to obtain information, that helps us formulate a marketing strategy of how are we going to put out our information about our tinnitus management service. So the first thing is, first of all, we need to have a strategy, a plan. And usually when we work on a marketing strategy, we look at what can we do internally within our walls, what can we do outside of our clinic. So first of all, I recommend we know already they're in the waiting room. We know we have people that know people. So use your wall space to have posters, on tinnitus. Did you know about tinnitus? What do you know? Quite, not too busy, but something that'll attract attention. Have your own patient brochure on tinnitus management that you can hand out. This way, you're already promoting, and within your own space. Then we mentioned the critical pathways. So again, you can turn this into building your referral network. So basically, all the people we mentioned, all the pathways, the GPs, the ENTs, the other audiologists, nurse practitioners, you can look at pharmacists, denturologists, optometrists, ophthalmologists, and it goes on and on. We could really put ourselves in situations where do we find these patients, and basically build a referral network. And I say build because, Craig, you just don't say to somebody, refer to me. You need to invest to do it properly. We need to invest the time and plan and pick the people we want to work with and build those relationships, because basically it's a gift that keeps on giving once you have that relationship, right?
Yeah, it is a relationship.
Yeah.
So how would one go about trying to build those relationships with other healthcare providers?
Yeah, good question. So first of all, the first thing you need to do is people need to know what you do. You need to communicate it. So how do you communicate it? You can organize an open house for different referring partners that you have. They come to visit your actual space. You can give an information session, what you do, so that then they themselves are comfortable. That's one thing that's worked well. You can also, like I said before, have a practice more specific to your practice, tinnitus management brochure that you can then give to them to hand out. So imagine that already they have somebody in their office. If they have already this on hand, the brochure, they can already give it to them with your information, your address and everything, and then it's a call to action that's immediate. It makes it easy. Everything we want to do always is to reduce stress and make it easy to work with us. We have to always keep that in mind as a practice. And so the other thing that you could do is have already referral pads that you give to the GP that they could just complete and say, yes, I assess this person. Something else that really healthcare professionals, in my experience in the different fields, I know have benefited from is the courtesy of knowing, once you refer somebody, giving them the courtesy of knowing what happened to my patient. So it's not fragmented care. A lot of people miss that step. If you give them a little note that maybe it's already a pre-printed script that you just add the different information about your patient and you send it to them to know what happened with their patient, people appreciate that, and especially people that have a good professional standard of care.
Sure.
And then, of course, there's a question, people, okay, sure, it's nice, they want to refer to you, but let's be honest, people also want to know what's in it for me. What's in it for me to send you? So depending on your province and your college, you may be able to give a referral fee. You have to look into that. I don't know the details. And also what you could do is you could reciprocate. In a lot of these different healthcare professions and areas, you can also, also have their brochures and also refer or put them in your waiting room. So, there are ways to also incentivize people to refer to you. But again, those relationships are really important to foster. So the other thing that I mentioned, Craig, is the online. We're talking about online.
Yes,
so people, we know that they surf the net, like I said to you, even myself, if there's something for me. So I decided, working on this presentation, I'm a curious person and pretty analytical, if people don't know me. And basically, I said I'm going to, search the term tinnitus on Google. And Craig, I'd like you to take a guess how many hits I got.
Well, I'm assuming it's a lot, but I'm guessing in the thousands or tens of thousands, maybe more.
Okay, Craig.
Millions.
129 million hits is what I got when I put in tinnitus. Now, of course, the population doesn't know the word tinnitus,
Sure.
right? It's only when they're diagnosed and somebody, they may come across it by fluke, I don't know. But people refer to it as ringing in the ears. And so I decided to Google ringing in the ears, and I got even more hits. Yeah, sure, 212 million hits. So that brings me to something else. Your practice's website. All practices should have obviously a website. It goes without saying. And what this tells me is that a website has to be constructed really well by professionals, where you're going to come up, first, if somebody mentions tinnitus, and for your geography. Okay, so that's number one. It has to come up first. And like I said to you, being the analytical person that I am, I decided to review 71 websites of independent clinics across all of Canada. I went through each one to find out, did they even mention the word tinnitus once? If they mentioned the word tinnitus once, then I counted them as mentioning tinnitus. So 50 out of the 71, okay, mentioned tinnitus. Okay, that's not too bad. Then I decided, you know what, I'm going to look at what tabs do they actually,
Where was that information found?
Exactly. Yeah. Like how did they find it? Is it easy to find? Whatever. So I found that, first of all, there were about 16 different tabs for the 50, but I was able to categorize them into under services. So 28, a good majority of them, were under services, which would make sense. Somebody might think of services. And then I found 7 of them, which represented 14% out of the 50, had its own tinnitus tab.
Section.
Yeah, I thought that was amazing because it just shows that this, we really focus on tinnitus here, that it has its own tab. Something that surprised me a little bit was when people put tinnitus under hearing aid styles. I've seen that, or under the tab that says hearing loss. So 2 things. People with tinnitus don't think that they have hearing loss. And so they don't think they need hearing aids. So this is not an easy way for them to locate your services. And then I actually found one that was pretty special. It said, the tab says, how can we help? And underneath they show the different services they offer, and tinnitus was in that. So basically, we need to make it easy to find the information. Now, when speaking about the information, so since I was reviewing it, I want to know what information is out there. I wanted to categorize it so we could analyze. And basically, I only was able to categorize it into 2 buckets. Hardly any information. It could be even just the word tinnitus management, or a lot of comprehensive information about symptoms, about FAQs, and you go on, and coping, and all kinds of things. So I found that not many
went to that line.
Yeah, 18 out of the 50 had very minimal information. So it's almost like you're just mentioning it. Are you really a serious player in the game of tinnitus management? I'm not sure. The rest, they had very good information, but I also found that the ones that had a lot of information, some of them had too much medical jargon. It was too scientific,
too confusing,
too much. And so again, my advice would be just to make a website that's easy to, first of all, has to come up. a tab easy to locate, and then information that is going to be easily understood and just enough to get a call to action. So that's when we're talking about your website. The other thing that I wanted to mention now is we talked about social media, right? We know that people go to social media more and more for information and support. So again, I can't underscore, you need to have the Facebook page, again, to give provide quality information. Same thing with Twitter. And the other advice is make sure that all your social media platforms, they link to your website, because then you might have more information on a website, and they link back and forth as well. So, and they're in all your printed materials and everything. So again, you need to have a Facebook presence, and as well as a Twitter. And then some of the other external marketing strategies that I give advice on is put out there patient education seminars. Go to your local communities and put out an information session and invite just the local community. Also, a direct mail campaign might help as well. And also, radio ads tend to work when it comes to that population, depending on your geography, if you're more rural and stuff like that. So I kind of reviewed a little bit of how they obtain information, how to promote. The next part that I address in the course is how do we interact with the tinnitus patient, tinnitus sufferer.
Interesting. Like on some level, I would think we're already doing those things just by providing hearing care services, but maybe there's some additional considerations for dealing with the tinnitus patient versus just your average patient seeking hearing care.
So your tinnitus patient is not your typical patient with hearing impairment, whether it's age-related or not at all. Not at all. It's a totally different profile. So I reviewed a lot of research, and also I did observe a couple of clinics that focus they're gurus in tinnitus management in Canada, and basically I noticed a pattern which is consistent with the literature that men have a slightly higher prevalence when they come to your practice. You see more men. Now that could be either there is more prevalence, or maybe because the men tend to be in those noise-inducing jobs, like maybe the military and things like that. Or it could be because men, especially, if you get older and the women didn't work much, they have more access to insurance or access, I don't know. But it's consistent. You might see slightly more males than females. Then I looked at research that talks about the age groups, right? So people afflicted with tinnitus, it's across, it can be in their 40s as well as it could be when you're older. It's not targeting, it really is a big range. So that's important when we interact with the patients. We need to come from a perspective, you talk differently from people that come from different generations that went through different things. So that's very important to consider as well because of the age and the gender. Then the other thing that we look at that's very important that differentiates from a typical patient would be the emotional state of these people.
Okay.
So
yeah, talk a little bit about that.
So this is really it's tough. So
Yeah.
the tinnitus sufferers, they're desperate. First of all, they could have been people that were already, if they went online and they started, they listened to some gimmicks or things like that, or they've been given the runaround, or so they're desperate. They're at the end of their rope. They have a lot of anxiety and depression, as the research shows. They tend to also have suicidal thoughts. That's how much it could be. They're not as trusting, and they could be skeptical, as well. It has a lot of effects on their daily life. It affects their relationships, their jobs. It has a big impact in their life. Their mental state as well, like we said, they have lack of sleep. A lot of them are maybe tired, irritable. So we need to know that when we're speaking to these people, and our staff is talking to these patients, that they're not well at all. They're in crisis.
Yeah, you need to be kind of sensitive to that.
100%. So it's pretty heartbreaking, I have to tell you. Like, I observed so many examples when I did my observations. One was a 69-year-old male who was his own boss of a major company, and he was retired, and he just crying, sobbing, that he was at the end of his rope and having suicidal thoughts. And this is probably a person that was in charge. I mean, that people looked up to and felt strong. And here, it's like they're embarrassed. So it really, we need to take that into consideration. So how do we interact with these people? So first, we need to be experts in two people management skills that I find are crucial, are listening skills and empathy, putting yourself in other people's shoes. Everybody, all the staff, not just the clinicians, everybody has to master these two skills. There's advice that I can give. I also cover advice for the front office and also for the clinicians for counseling. The advice for the front office is, first of all, follow a patient journey. If for a tinnitus, specifically a tinnitus, look at what the workup the evaluation looks like. So also you can understand for another person that calls. And also look at what these people are, the way the clinician probes and everything. And so that you understand what is going on, you get a full picture of the person. Then you also, the way you interact, if they're calling, let's say for an appointment. So if they're calling for an appointment, you're gonna, relate to them by saying, oh, I understand how difficult and how, frustrating your situation is. Yeah. Exactly. And I'm going to try to fit you in right away. Somebody that hears that, it's like a big load off their shoulders versus what they're getting maybe before, or the runaround, or who knows what. It's like somebody gets it here, right? So that's the second advice I give for the front desk. I also like for people to also ask them how they heard about the practice, because that helps us understand where we're getting these people from sometimes. The other thing that I want to make sure that front office people know and that they're aware of, don't tell a tinnitus patient, oh, I'm going to book you for a hearing test. First of all, 60% of people that suffer with tinnitus deny having any hearing loss, even though we know 80 to 90% do. So if you tell somebody like that, right away they're going to think this person doesn't get me. It's not my ears, I hear, right? Yeah. So don't go to your, go-to questions. Yeah. And, so
even though we know that, they don't come into it with that
100%. Yeah. So mention, I'm going to book you for a tinnitus evaluation, comprehensive tinnitus evaluation and workup, so we can give you the best treatment options for you. Right, so it's not misleading. If they ask what does this entail, you can then go on and explain it's a hearing evaluation, blah blah blah. But don't go right away. I've seen that and I've heard it, and people right away get like, no, that's not my issue. Right. You don't get it, right? Yeah. So that's the other advice I can give. And then I have, again, for the clinicians, basically you need to build a trusting relationship. Explain it like usual, to give value to what you do and to the whole exam. Explain, what you have assessed and everything, and you're probing, because we know a lot of times that sometimes if it's not because of occupation, there's been a lot, and I observed when I did observe some patients, a stressful situation that occurred that trigger these things. That happens in a big subset of the population that suffer with tinnitus. So don't use medical jargon. Try not to do that because already these people have a hard time concentrating. They're hearing this noise, they're in a fog. Try to make, also speak slowly and softly. Again, we have to show some compassion. They're going to be crying, they're going to be doing that. Also, in terms of counseling, we have at Widex a WZT program, and they promote a really amazing model that has 3 approaches. I'm not going to talk about that. People could look into our course, but that's basically my advice for how to interact with in a nutshell, the clinical, the patient from a clinical counsel perspective.
Are there any scheduling considerations that might separate scheduling a tinnitus patient from a hearing care patient?
Basically, what I've seen as a best practice, I've seen a variation, maybe 1 hour appointment to 1.5 hour appointments. I think the best practice is to book the 1.5 hours, because then you could really probe and take the time. A lot of information comes out. It's also a lot of the psychological, and knowing what steps they've done before, who they saw, what they did so far. It takes time to build that rapport and everything and that trust. Also, another best practice that I saw was if you have a resource already in your practice. For example, there's one practice in Quebec. She has a sophrologist. A sophrologist is somebody who practices sophrology, and it's a science of relaxation, and it helps. It's mental and physical exercises that help relaxation. So sometimes they can book the patient right away for this evaluation. If they already knew they suffer from tinnitus, let's say they've seen an ENT or whatever, and then they book them also with a spot. So the person feels like they were taken charge of, we took them,
Sure.
From a multi-disciplinary. So that's another thing to consider. The other thing I would say is don't schedule too many in a day.
Right.
Maybe 2 a day, and I would do them at the end of the day more. The afternoon, because if you're going through this in the morning, it could be exhausting a little bit,
Taxing,
and it could be taxing on you.
Yeah.
So those are some of my little tips. Yeah.
Sure, for sure. And then lastly, just to finish off, how can providing tinnitus management services be economically worth it for a clinic? Because we sometimes hear about that, like, hey, it's not in my best interest, maybe financially, to offer that service.
Yeah, that's a very valid question, because we're spending a lot of time and everything.
Yeah.
So basically, yes. First of all, you should 100% be charging for comprehensive tinnitus evaluation. These examinations, besides all the normal tests that we do, there's the THR, the tinnitus hearing inventory survey. There's a lot of different questionnaires that you can be giving and all that. So I've seen a range of $100 to $300 across Canada. So it varies depending where you are. That's for that first assessment. Also, some of the third-party payers are paying for an assessment, like the DVA will pay $100, things like that. So you're making some money from that.
Sure.
But because 80 to 90% of the patients have hear loss, you will be making money by selling the hearing aids. So definitely there is money to make. Let's not forget that because these people are so appreciative when they finally get help, and I've heard so many stories, first-hand accounts of this, that they become your raving fans.
Right.
They start sending you people, whether it's just even if it's not tinnitus, but so word of mouth is really huge. In some research that I've done before for when I worked at LASIK MD or in other areas, I analyzed how people hear about us, and 76%. The word of mouth is really powerful, really powerful.
Absolutely.
So that's basically it. And I'm hoping that more and more people take this on, building a tinnitus management practice.
Agreed.
It's the right thing to do, and
for sure.
Not easy, but really worth it at the end of the day.
No, I'm sure that just the information you've provided today, I think, will hopefully help any clinic owner out there who might already be providing this service, but might encourage a few more to take it on.
For sure. And if anybody that I give the course, of course, I can also put people together from different geographies, provinces, to learn from each other, create a nice, group of experts as well. So we could take this many, many ways.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you, Myriam.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the time.
Okay. And thank you to our audience for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we look forward to your attendance at a future Widex podcast.
Thank you. And I'll thank the camera person as well.